Good evening. Good to see you. And it's a beautiful night, isn't it? It's a little chilly, but it's still beautiful. I have just a few announcements to share with you. This Saturday, David Diamond, who does the law of attraction, will be doing the workshop from 1 to 3 if you're interested. And the topic is money and the law of attraction. Should really be an interesting one. Okay. That'll be this Saturday from 1 to 3. The Zoom numbers are on the website, startingpoint.org. Also, we had a podcast last week. Eric Jarvis, one of our counselors, did a podcast on relocation and basically learning how to, through the pandemic, how to begin to come out of isolation. And then also how kind of we're looking towards what things will be when things get back to some kind of new normal. It was pretty, he did a real good job. If you get a chance, it's on our website. You can check it out. Also, next Thursday, the 29th, I'll be doing a podcast with Loretta on spirituality and sports. That'll be at 12 noon on Thursday, the 29th. So if you want to come and join us, I enjoy doing that thing on spirituality and sports and the connection. So I'll kind of bring that out and see what happens with it. Okay. I also want to mention that our education page has, I think, 8 or 9 podcasts on it now. So if you want to check them out from all different areas. And last week, we buried one of our counselors, CP Marachi. Please continue to keep him in your prayers. But CP did a podcast for us right before, a few weeks before he died. And that podcast on gambling is on our website. He's quite a character, so you might want to enjoy watching that one. You want to get a real taste of South Philadelphia, it's the podcast to go to. Okay, I also want to mention, I'll be talking about the 7 questions tonight. And they are on the website, but we also have put a link to them in the chat room. So the easiest way to get them is just go to the chat room. The link is there. You can check it from there, okay? I'll talk more about that in the lecture tonight. Okay, and don't forget our Venmo number is in the chat room. And if you basically want to throw something in there, we'd be very happy to accept it. I'm going to begin by doing the reading tonight, and I picked the one from August the 11th, which deals with our topic for tonight. Healing. Let healing energy flow through your body. The healing energy of God, the universe, life, and recovery surrounds all of us. It is available, waiting for us to draw on it. It's waiting at our meetings or groups on the words of a whispered prayer and a gentle touch, a positive word, a positive thought. Healing energy is the sun, the wind, the rain, in everything that's good. Let healing energy come, attract it, accept it, let it soak in, breathe in the golden light. Let go of fear, anger, hurt, and doubt. Let healing energy flow to you and through you. It is yours for the asking. Today, I will ask for and accept the healing energy from God and the universe. I will let it flow to me, through me, and back out to others. I am part of and at one with the continuous cycle of healing. I love that because it's so beautiful, because one of the things I've learned is in doing family of origin work, we'll be doing tonight, and going back into my history and getting in touch with what I'm really all about. It's very special and very beautiful. And it is a very powerful healing process, because I really believe that we have this energy inside of us as people. It's our spirit that makes us who we are. We have to get in touch with that and be able to share it. So tonight, I want to kind of get into the 8th talk in our series on codependency. And for those of you who may have missed the earlier talks, they are on our website under Vince's Corner, if you want to check them out and go and backtrack with us. But tonight we're going to continue our process of recovery and talk a lot about the concept of how do I do a family history, or how do I do my family of origin? One of the things I mentioned last week when we talked about affirmations and self-parenting, one of the prerequisites we have to have in doing family work is to be able to do it with a positive attitude. See, remember, this is not about finding out what's wrong with us. Because I truly believe today there's nothing wrong with anybody. That basically it's about facing our history, facing our past, facing our hurt, facing our pain, accepting it, embracing it, learning from it, and growing from it. I truly believe all of our experiences, no matter what they are, even the most traumatic, can, with work and with struggle, become our teachable moments and become something positive for us on the course of our journey in life. The hardest part is getting to that and beginning to work on it. So I want to share with you a technique tonight that I consider pretty unique. It's probably one of the better journaling techniques I know, and I love sharing it. It's a simple journaling technique, but it does work. And basically, it's centralized around 7 simple questions. Back in the beginning of this series, I talked about the 5 basic families. I mentioned that in growing up as children, we're all members of 5 basic communities, 5 basic families. And those families in the first 10 years of our life had a strong influence on developing our traits, our characteristics, who we are as people, and all the things that we actually express in ourselves as we get older, come back from those roots and from those foundations. It's almost like as a child, we got seeds planted inside of us. They became our roots, our foundations. And from that, the tree started to grow. I love referring to the mustard seed, which has always been a key thing for me in my life. The concept that from that little seed, something beautiful grows. So from all of your experiences, the things you've gone through in life, the losses, the positive, the negative, everything, from it is like the nurturing of our growth process. So it's all part of the process we go through in life. To do that, what I'm going to ask you to do is, I'm going to ask you to take 7 simple questions. Now, you can pick those questions up, and I mentioned this last week. If you want to do this, it's entirely up to you. If you take those 7 questions, and if you would answer them to the best of your ability, and I'll explain how we do that in a minute, then basically I have no problems meeting with you and going over the 7 questions with you. Okay, but do me a favor. If you do them, don't contact me about setting up a time to do it till we finish the series on codependency. We have 2 more weeks to go. I'm going to be doing the inner child in those 2 weeks. And I want you to be able to have the whole package before we actually take a look at them, okay? Just want to emphasize that. But anyway, the link to the 7 questions is in the chat room, but it's also on the website under Vince's Corner. You just right at the beginning, you can see the 7 questions. You can link right into it and you can download them, okay? When I go over those questions with you, what I'm going to ask you to do is remember something which is really important. This process I'm talking about tonight is about perception. Now, I want to emphasize that because it's about how you perceived your childhood. Remember a secret principle. I can take 8 children from the same family, put them in 8 separate rooms, do a family history with each and every one of them. I will come out with 8 different families because every child perceives the family differently. So please, when you're answering the questions, don't ask your brother or your sister. Their perception is different than you. Don't ask your parents, please. These are your perceptions, because whatever you perceived in your early years, those first 10 years, for you, it's real. It may not be for them, but it may be for you. And that's really important. So remember what the word perception really is all about. Because if I perceive something to be, that's what I have to work on. So take your time with this. Secondly, because people always ask me this question, suppose I don't remember a lot of stuff. Say a prayer. Try to connect back to your childhood. Some of the ways we can connect is by going back and taking a look at some of the things you may have from your childhood that bring back memories. For example, I actually have, believe it or not, my toe tag. You got to remember, I was born in 1940. They actually tagged your toe with a toe tag. and had my, all my things on it, how much I weighed, how long I was, all that kind of stuff and everything else. I still have it. I actually had it decomposed and put on a little plaque, and it kind of reminds me. My wife even took those things and made a doll for me. It has all those things on the back of the doll. She made like a little Vinny for me. It's pretty neat. So it's just interesting things from your childhood. I also have a set of my booties I wore when I was a little boy. One side of it's worn out. Just interesting. My mother saved all this stuff, and I was able to put it together. But I've learned through photographs, through different pictures, different things you may have that remind you of your childhood. I find that looking over those old photographs and things to that effect opens up more memories and things inside of you. Whatever you do, though, say a prayer. Whatever comes to you, write it down. Don't force memory, okay? It's the worst thing you can do. Don't make things up or force memory. Whatever your perception was, that's it. Whatever you remember, I have a principle. God only allows us to remember what we're ready to remember and ready to work on. This process I'm going to teach you tonight, a process we can work on for the rest of our life. We're always learning something new about ourselves, and that's what's important. And so take a look at the 7 questions. Real quickly, the first question is, what was your perception of your parents growing up as a child? What was your perception? What was your perception of your grandparents growing up? If you experienced your grandparents. I, unfortunately, never did experience my grandparents because my grandparents fundamentally had passed on before I was born. It's sad, but I have memories. I actually have a photograph. The only photograph I have of my grandfather in Italy is actually him standing in the middle of about 200 chickens. He was a chicken farmer. He raised chickens and sold eggs. And so I have this photograph of him standing with all these chickens around him. It's pretty neat. That's the only photograph I have. And most of the photographs I have of my grandfather, who died in 38 and I was born in 40, he looks like the Godfather from the Mafia. He's got that hat on, the brim hat and the suit, and all the pictures back then were posed, remember? And so back in that generation. And so I look at him and I say, whoa, it looks like he came right out of the Godfather movie. So I look at all these things and I can laugh about that today and look at them today because I realize history teaches you a lot about yourself. And I love going over old photographs because I really think they bring out a lot of memories and connect things with you. The other one, what was your perception of your neighborhood, your cultural, or your environment in growing up? See, we all came out of different cultures, neighborhoods, environments, came out of different backgrounds. Coming out of my Italian background, back in the 40s, I lived in a little cluster back in South Camden, and it was basically, you hung around nobody but Italians. Everybody else, I think, was unclean. I don't know what the hell it was. It was crazy back then. We lived in this little world, everything centralized around that world, and it was just unbelievable. So your culture had a lot of effect on you, the way you functioned, the way things happened. What was your religious perception of your religious background? Mine was scary as hell, my religious background back in the 40s. I had these ladies, they called them nuns, but I think they worked for the Marine Corps. They scared the living crap out of me. I always loved telling the story. I got to kind of tell you the story. I got stories. That's the fun part about it. When I was a kid, the nuns scared the hell out of me. I mean, scared me to death. They would say, get on your knees every morning and say your morning prayers. Get on your knees every night and say your night prayers. Well, I really thought they had a camera in my house. That's how scared I was of them. And so you started your day on your knees, you ended your day on your knees. Then I went to the seminary. And for 12 years in the seminary, they got us up at 5:30 in the morning, get on our knees in the chapel and say our morning prayers. And then 10 o'clock at night, get on your knees in the chapel and say your night prayers. Then I get involved in AA with the old timers in AA. And guess what they say? Start your day on your knees and end your day on your knees. And so therefore I got calluses on my knees right now. It's totally amazing. So I can smile about that and laugh about that today. But I've learned over and over again, our culture, our neighborhood that we grew up in has an effect on us as people. What was your perception, both of religion, your culture, your neighborhood, your perception of your peers, how they affect you in growing up? What was your perception of yourself as a child? And then finally, how did your childhood perceptions affect your relationships? For example, whether you realize it or not, for a little girl, your father is supposed to be your first love, the love of your life, and your role model for relationships. For a little boy, it's supposed to be mommy. Daddy's supposed to be, for a boy, a role model of what it is to be a man. And for a little girl, mommy's supposed to be a role model of what it is to be a little girl. So you pick up traits and characteristics. My mother, I picked up my addictive personality, and my father gave me a PhD in codependency. It was totally amazing. But see, I could look at that negatively in the past. But by doing this work and looking at it, I realized there are actually two gifts today. I thank mom and dad because they brought me to be able to do the stuff I'm doing today. So I can always look at things and try to look at them eventually, not right away, through the eyes of healing and gratitude. And so when you take these 7 questions and go over them, what I would like you to do, after you fill the questions out, you've gone over them, because we have a philosophy. I'll show you how it works in a minute. I'd like you to take 2 notebooks. One's going to go to the dollar store. I always plug dollar stores. Go to a dollar store and buy 2 notebooks. Actually, if you want to, you can buy 3. They're cheap. They're only $1 a piece. See, everything at the dollar store is only $1. Did you know that? It's kind of fantastic. I love it. Anyway, you get 2 notebooks, and the one notebook is going to be your negative notebook. One's going to be your positive notebook. The other notebook is just your assignment notebook. But negative and positive notebooks. Why? Because eventually you have to learn how to separate your feelings, how to be able to identify negative feelings from positive feelings. What I would like you to do, once you do get your notebooks and once you've done your 7 questions, I would like you then to go into your negative notebook, and I would like you to make a list. Make a list of all the negative persons, places, and things that affected you when you were a child. Make a list of all the negative persons, places, and things that affected you as a child. Then go into your positive notebook and make a list of all the positive persons, places, and things that affected you as a child. What you're going to find out is that some people might be on both sides, and that's okay, because there might have been some negative and some positive in a lot of different directions. Once you've done those lists, then what I recommend is taking part in a powerful process. I would like you to take one person at a time off your negative list. For example, some things that were on my negative list. My mom, my dad, the church was on my negative list, the school I was raised in, different people, and I won't mention them all. So I had my negative list. So you take, for example, I'll take my mom. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give now this is where you as an adult have to learn the self-parenting technique of being what I call the higher parent or the higher adult. You're going to give your little girl or your little boy permission to write a letter. Now, in my case, I had to give my little boy permission to write to my mother and to release all the negative feelings I have about my mom. Now, please, I'm writing to my mother, but do not mail the letters. Let me say it another 2 times. Do not mail the letters. Do not give them to them. These are for you, not for them. Gabish, you got that one all right? Good. Now, Well, you take your mother and you write and get rid of every negative. You give your little child permission to release all of its negative feelings. When you're done in the positive notebook, then you look at those feelings that child went through. And as the higher adult, you're not going to help that little child to learn positive lessons from those feelings. A quick little example. My mother was possessive and controlling. My mother basically ran my life. She planned my life. So as a result, I was always kind of under her. And I lived my life for her. It's scary. The therapist later on told me that basically I probably was her indirect spouse in many ways. So a lot of inappropriate stuff. So I had to be able to get in touch with that, face it and deal with it. Then on the positive lessons, what lessons did I learn from all that? I've learned that my mother basically was one of my teachers. Going through the healing process with these letters helped me to start to release feelings. So it's actually you as the adult giving that little child permission to express itself. Then what do I do with all these letters once I write them? Negative, positive, all this stuff. Then you do something, and I recommend highly getting yourself what I call a God box. Now, God boxes are very special. You know, you can get a God box. All you gotta do is just get a shoebox. Any kind of box, doesn't make any difference. You can actually go to some of these recovery bookstores and they sell God boxes for $25 and $30. The big fancy boxes. You don't need that. Shoebox does the job. It's called your God box. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to find one or two people that I feel safe with, I feel comfortable with. Someone that will keep what I'm doing in confidence, and someone that basically I can trust, and someone who will listen to what I'm going to do and not give me any advice. You're not doing this for advice, okay? What you then do is you take your negative letter or letters, I'd probably say do a few of them before you do this, and sit down with this individual or this person, and you share them. You give the child permission to share them out loud. Once you've read the letter and gotten it out of your system to this person you trust, then you then take the letter you wrote, go to your God box, tear it up, say a prayer to God, and then release it and put it into your God box to let go of the negative. Then you take the positive results you've got from that letter that your adult helped you to do, and you read them, but you keep them. And so what's going to happen is your negative notebook is going to get skinnier. Your positive notebook will stay thick as the journey goes on. Now, this technique is something you can use in every aspect of your life. Many of us have learned, I'll talk more about this next week, talked about this difference between reacting and responding to situations. Even as adults, when something really bothers us, we can write about it in our negative notebook. Even write the person a letter without mailing it to them. And then work on a positive response on the other side. And sometimes no response is a positive response. You know, for example, let's say your boss, is what we refer to as a horse's you know what, and you can't take him anymore, you've had enough. Well, instead of hitting him over the head with a chair, don't do that, you go to jail. What you do is you write your boss a nice letter letting him know exactly how you feel about him. You get all those feelings out. It's fantastic. Then, once you got those feelings out, you share them with somebody you trust. Then, in the positive side, you work out an appropriate response in dealing with it. An appropriate response being no response to him, but maybe I'm going to go to school, work on myself, and look for a different job. So I'm going to look for a positive way to learn from all these negative things that happen in our life. I use the Karate Kid process. It's called Negative out, positive in. Negative out, positive in. Remember from the Karate Kid, wipe on, wipe off? Negative out, positive in. Negative out, positive in. That's the key to everything we do in the course of our process. And so we learned this after a period of time. And so once we were able to fill the God box up, then I recommend that you do this. It's up to you. You can give me a call, bring your God box over to Starting Point, and we have in the back of Starting, on the side of Starting Point, we have a plot of ground called our Recovery Cemetery. Now you can actually come there. I have one of those little grills, the hibachi, whatever you call it. We'll take your stuff that's in your God box. We will then pray, burn it, and then we'll dig a nice big hole and we'll bury it. And then we'll do a funeral service to say goodbye to it. It's kind of a neat thing. I love our Recovery Cemetery. It has lots of neat stuff buried in it. It's totally amazing. You come right down to it. And so it's a place to be able to release and let stuff go. I'm a big believer in the concept of releasing, burning, letting go, and then moving on. And so this is one of the ways in which we actually encourage you to go look at your family history and to learn from it and grow from it. For example, one of the things I learned tremendously from all of this, I finally went back and did my mother and father's history too, because I wanted to learn the foundations they came from. And I learned some powerful things. For example, my mother was born in 1904. Her mother died when she was 2 years old in 1906. Her father, my grandfather, put her into the orphanage. Because you got to remember, in 1906, women and men did not raise children. St. Vincent's Orphanage in Philadelphia, because a lot of women died in childbirth back then. And so a lot of times the fathers would drop the kids off for the nuns to raise until they found a new wife. Then they go back and pick the kids up. That's my mom. She spent 5 years in an orphanage with her sister. And then when my grandfather found a new wife, he went back and picked the two of them up. And you talk about abandonment issues. You know what I found really interesting? My mother got abandoned by her mother in death, abandoned by her father in the orphanage. So when I was born, I would never get abandoned. This is where the smothering came in. I have a clear understanding of that now, but it helped me to go back and look at where they came from. You know, even my father, came across this country in a boat right after the First World War. You know, if you ever saw the movie War Horse, my father rode one of those suckers in the First World War, and he came over in a boat. He had my mother's name tagged on him. Their marriage was prearranged. I mean, we don't even talk too much about that today. But basically, we joke in our family, according to my family. I can't verify all this as absolute truth, because families always have stories, as well as I. But they claim he met my mother on Tuesday, married her on Friday, went back to work on Monday, took care of that relationship. Then they hung out for God knows how long. And then 18 years after they were married in 1922, in 1940, I came along. I'm the only child. I probably was a surprise, I'm sure, but who knows? Because my mom was 39 years old when I was born. So you look at the concept of all this and you come right down to it. And so literally in reality, we look at histories to learn things, to experience things in our life. And the releasing, the letting go of it, using the God box, using individuals to share it with, there's such a freedom in that. And that's why I talk about allowing that little child to have a voice. And you can actually have a lot of fun with this later on in life if you want to. It's up to you. Some people do it. You can then do the same thing with your teenage years and give your teenage child a voice. your middle years, even your old years. You can look at all different years of your life. We have all different things that happen in the course of them. That's why I like teaching this process, because it is a process. It's not a magical event. And it's a way in which we can actually release our negative feelings. Because I'm going to tell you right now, resentments, negative feelings, buried crap inside of us, we hurt nobody but ourselves. I mean, I can relate to this. I spent 44 years buried. I spent 44 years living externally and not internally, until I was able to finally get in touch with a lot of this stuff and get to have a life of my own for a change. And I'm happy to have a life today, even though, I still do some crazy stuff, and I'm still learning stuff in that direction. It's all part of it. Howie will tell you all about that, but it's not a problem. But it's all things we have to do in life. And so this is a process you're going through. And we experience that, which is important, and we realize the fact that we're never done. You can always learn something new about yourself. I love using this technique in my daily, everyday life. If I have a resentment against someone, it's a good way to release my resentment. And then to be able to finally deal with it, to look at a positive way of dealing with it. So always try to go back to the positive and stay away from the negative, because the negative will destroy you. I don't know about you, but I know for a long period of time, I was literally frozen inside. There was no me. And I realized I was spiritually dead. I even look at this today. When I was in the priesthood, I was a religious person. I really wasn't a spiritual person. It's only when I finally got into recovery and began to be around recovering people that I finally learned what spirituality really was, which is getting in touch with my spirit and me. And that's why I'm such a big believer in the 12 steps today, because I love the way the old timers set them up. 11 steps are for us to work on ourselves. It's a great adventure to work on yourself as a person. I get excited about that. It's not about analyzing yourself either. It's about being who you are. Each one of us is so unique and so special. And God gave us this beautiful energy we have inside of us. It's our spirit. It makes us who we are. We have to stop trying to be somebody else. Leave everybody else alone. Be you. Celebrate who you are every day. Celebrate your spirit. Celebrate your life. I get excited about this, so put up with me, please. I get very Italian after a while. I get a little nutsy. But I love all this, because I realize the fact that, good God, it's so crazy. I probably feel healthier today. I got more energy today, even though Loretta thinks I don't sometimes. But I have more energy today than I had when I was 40 years old. And I'll be 81 this year. I figure I get more energy when I get to 90. I'm really going to have some fun then. See what happens. See, Charlie, what you got to look forward to? It's totally amazing, isn't it? You'll get there, though. Don't worry. But that's the fun part of it. See, we have to learn to enjoy this. We're beautiful people. But I think so many times we bog ourselves down. We're looking at ourselves negatively. Stop it, all right? Nothing wrong with you. I hate to tell you this. God, it's terrible, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with you. We're just on a journey. And each one of us has this beautiful gift. It's our spirit that makes us who we are. So celebrate yourself. Celebrate who you are. But you got to get rid of that garbage. One of my favorite characters from Sesame Street is Oscar the Grouch. And my favorite song is, I Love Trash. I love that song. Well, we need to be able to clean out that trash and get that stuff out, because many of us have become what I call emotional hoarders. We've buried stuff inside of us for a long period of time, and now it's time to clean the house. And what's so beautiful, when you actually clean stuff out, your energy comes out. Things happen. You have more trust. You're more open. You look at things differently. You celebrate the people that are around you. You enjoy them. It's a very special process. And so put up with me getting excited tonight, but I just love all this. I can't help it. I really believe that we're all, and I want to say one more thing, which is really important. As you're doing your history, if some major traumas come up or things you can't shake, then it is time to get some professional help to help you through it. And that's okay too. I mean, I go to therapists. I believe them very deeply. And I've got a lot of help from a lot of great people over the years. So it's an important part. Sometimes you need that. You need some independent feedback sometimes in working through something. And so just look at yourself and try to do this stuff in a positive way. So what I would like you to do when you have the opportunity, I'm going to grab the 7 questions and go over them. And just wait until I finish the next 2 lectures so that we can have the inner child stuff on. I want to spend 2 weeks now on the inner child and take you on a journey through your inner child. I'll talk a lot about that next week, and then I'm going to do meditations with the inner child in my last session. It's a new part of the series I just added on, so we can check that out too. Okay, so have some fun with it. I want to close out tonight with a prayer because I want to ask our higher power, the God of our understanding, to guide us on our journey. Don't try doing it by yourself. Ask your higher power to walk with you as you go on a journey of learning, a journey of discovering, a journey of life, which is so important. So let us pray. God, we come before you as a family tonight. We come before you in prayer. We ask for your guidance. We ask for your direction. We ask you to try to help us on our journey. Teach us to realize that there are so many teachers that have come through our life, so many experiences we've all gone through. But we know that you created us with beauty, strength, with your powerful energy. Teach us to renew that inside of ourselves, to rediscover the beauty we have inside of us. Help us to release with this journey all of our negative things that have held us down for a long period of time. Help us to open up and to be able to experience the gift of who we are as a person, your creation. Walk with us. And every night we pray in a special way for those who have gone before us. As we look at our lecture hall right now and the plaques on the walls of all the people that have passed through the journeys of our lives, the lives of our starting point, the lives of the things we've experienced in life. Please, we can't forget them because they are our teachers. They're a part of our journey, and they are very special. And tonight in a special way, because I was at the lecture hall this afternoon, and I looked at a name on that wall. I try to pick certain names out. But I'd like you to say a special prayer for a guy named Jimmy R., who I put him to rest and helped bury him back in 1977 in the first years of Starting Point. Beautiful man. This disease took him down, but his spirit will always be part of me and part of my life and my journey. But he kind of represents so many people are going through so many struggles in the course of life. We don't forget. We know they're with us today. And I know that Jimmy's right here alongside of me, pushing me and telling me to keep sharing stuff as long as I'm on this earth. So God, thank you. Thank you for the Jimmys. Thank you for the Sallys. Thank you for all the wonderful people that have touched our lives. Thank you for our families. Thank you for all the things we've experienced. Help us to try to look at them in a positive way and grow and learn from them. So we ask and we pray this in your name, God. We ask that you be our guide, our strength, and our protector as we walk the journey of self-discovery. We ask this in your name. Amen. And now I'm going to ask all of you if you would kindly unmute yourself, and we'll close by doing the we version of the Serenity Prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.